Welcome to Cocktail History with the Freeborn County Historical Museum, Library, and Village. Stephanie Kibler, Executive Director. Joining me is Rochelle Lilienthal, Curator of Collections and Exhibits. Today we're going to mix our Tom Collins.
I've never had one.
I've never had one either.
Okay.
I have a friend, that's all she used to drink when we were young and in our 20s, and I've never tasted one. I don't know. So shocker, there's controversy.
The origin.
The origin of this cocktail. So I've come up with three, although I did find a fourth one, but I think the fourth one has the dates wrong and it's really the first one.
Okay.
So we're gonna go through the scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
The John Collins cocktail was reasonably popular in the early 19th century, came from a head waiter of Limmer's Old House, a London hotel and coffee house, 1790 to 1817.
I love how coffee houses always have like liquor too when we look back at them.
I know, it's interesting, isn't it? Like Starbucks, come on, Caribou, catch up. Scooters,
Yeah.
where's the rum?
They
Could be a
Red
long
Bull.
afternoon. They have Red Bull, that's about the same, right? So John Collins had all of the basic ingredients of the Tom Collins that we know today. The significant difference was John Collins used Genever, right? Genever is a multi-sweet spirit from Holland. Why are you laughing?
It sounds like one of the Hollywood mashup
Doesn't
names
it
or something.
made up name?
Like
I named
Jean
my
and
baby
Guinevere or something.
Genevieve. It's a spirit from Holland with juniper, and most people consider it the predecessor of gin.
Oh,
Genever. It's Genever. It's not Genever. Genever, but it's juniper. It's gin juniper by Genever.
say that 5 times fast.
So they think that as tastes evolved, the Genever got replaced with gin. Old Tom Gin, which was a brand, we've talked about that past.
Oh, okay.
Old Tom Gin was what they used then when they replaced it.
Uh-huh.
I'm just talking, I'm getting winded, just so you know.
Well, I
This
can
COVID is.
check with the little thing about Old Tom. Old Tom in Freeborn County, there was a horse named Old Tom.
Oh, I think
you
we've
remember
talked
that?
about that.
The whole Red Eye versus Old Tom race.
That was was that the one that was fabled to determine the county seats?
Yep. And that happened. I can give a little thing about Old Tom because they describe him kind of funny in the 1882 book, where Mr. Ruble comes into town with Red Eye,
Who was
groomed to a finish.
Yes.
And he was out in front of a saloon, and then Sheriff Heath's Old Tom was hitched up, and they described him as being, he was hitched to a one-horse wagon, half asleep, with his underlip hanging down and looking very tired and sorry.
So
Poor Old Tom.
So it was like night and day, right?
Yeah.
It was the.
And then Mr. Gray goes up and said to Mr. Ruble, "Oh, pshaw, George, I'll bet $25 even the Old Tom there can beat Red Eye."
And what happened?
I don't remember what happened. Didn't Old
I
Tom
believe
win?
Old Tom won.
Yeah.
Never underestimate the gloom and doom.
Poor Old Tom.
Old Tom. I picture Eeyore. Like Old Tom's tail was stuck on with a tack and the little lip was hanging. So back to the John Collins.
Yes.
By 1869, the Steward and Barkeeper's Manual of 1869 referenced the recipe for John Collins using Old Tom gin.
Too many names.
Oh. So that's interesting. So 1869.
Yes.
John Collins, Old Tom Gin. Jerry Thomas, who's considered the father of American mixology, the very first to start writing down the recipes and processing cocktails in America. In 1862, he published The Bartender's Guide, an authentic Bible of good drinking.
We talk about that book a
Uh-huh.
lot. Yeah.
And it was the first drink book ever published in the U.S. And the reissue in 1876 contains the first official recipe for the Tom Collins.
So that's 7 years before the
Well,
old
no.
Tom one.
1869
Yep.
was the old Tom. 1876
Oh, 76.
was Jerry Thomas's version. Now, the Tom Collins was immortalized in Harry Johnson's 1882 book, New and Improved Bartender's Manual, or How to Mix Drinks of the Present Style, which is kind of interesting, right? Because a lot of what is now happening today, at least in American bars, we're
they're
falling
going
back
to the
on
more
those
original.
present style
Yeah.
drinks, which I thought was kind of a, anyway.
Yeah.
And that one, that version has remained popular. That's been, so I like the Jerry Thomas version. He's American,
Oh, sure.
you know.
Sure. I was going to say you haven't had one yet. How do you know?
Well,
Are you talking about the story?
the story, because it's tied to the great Tom Collins hoax of 1874.
Okay.
So the story goes, Tom Collins was a loud and boisterous man who was known to sit in taverns and talk harshly of nearly everyone he'd met, or in many cases, those he hadn't.
Oh, no. He's a gossip.
So fortunately for those who fell victim to Collins' wrath, they had good friends who would immediately find their friend and let them know of all the profanity directed towards them. The victim was then encouraged to find Collins and confront him. However, when the victim went to the tavern where Collins was meant to be, he was nowhere to be found because he didn't exist. So it was then that those desperately looking for their revenge would ask the bar for Tom Collins and instead received the cocktail.
So it was a way for them to get business at the bar?
I think it was just a joke somebody started with a friend and it just kind of took off. Well, newspapers picked up on it. So here's a little script. Have you seen Tom Collins?
Wait, are we...
If you haven't, perhaps you had better do so as quick as you can, for he is talking about you in a very rough manner, calling you hard names, and altogether saying things about you that are rather calculated to induce people to believe there is nothing you wouldn't steal short of a red hot stove. Other little things of that nature he is openly speaking in public places. And as a friend, although of course we don't wish to make you feel uncomfortable, we think you ought to take some notice of them and of Mr. Tom Collins. So then they would go bar to bar asking for Tom Collins.
Just imagine somebody just red-faced, just like,
Tom Collins! Anyway, that hoax, the prank became known as the Great Tom Collins Hoax of 1874. It continued to be circulated for months by newspapers.
Wow.
First, they reported it as being a serious story, and then they caught on. The Daily Republican in June of 1874 threw out this headline and following article. Tom Collins still among us. This individual kept up his nefarious business of slandering our citizens all day yesterday, but we believe that he succeeded in keeping out of the way of his pursuers. In several instances, he came well nigh being caught, having left certain places but a few moments before the arrival of those who were hunting him. His movements were watched today with the utmost vigilance. Finally, the newspaper caught on, changed their
the way
they were doing it. 2 years later, Jerry Thomas included a new drink named after the hoax.
Oh, funny.
By 1878, the Tom Collins was being served in bar rooms everywhere, establishing itself as an international icon.
That's funny.
Yeah, so that was
I
my
like
favorite.
that.
Was my favorite.
That's a good
That's
one.
actually when there's going to be the controversy, which there are with a lot of these. That's the funnest one.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's got to be somebody we could send for Tom Collins.
Yeah.
Who's gullible.
Well, you already told me the story.
Yes, well, okay. Oh, shoot. Why didn't I think I could have gotten, I bet you Brent at the 112 would have joined in on that fun. Who besides you is gullible?
Well, you know the story too.
It's so funny. I just can't imagine getting somebody so worked up.
Riled up, rearing to go.
What do you mean he said that about me?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's mix these. All right. So we mix them right in the glass.
Yay!
I'm going to get our little stirrer now, which should be somewhere here. So each glass gets 2 ounces of gin.
Not, what is it, Gwen?
Genever.
Jennifer.
Guinevere.
2 ounces.
2 ounces of gin
Good golly.
in each glass. And we've already added our ice.
Mm-hmm.
We did that
And
rather
washed our
nicely.
hands.
That was
Thank
good.
you.
God, that looks like a lot of gin in that cup all of a sudden. Good thing it's the end of the day. And after that, we're gonna split the lemon juice 50-50. It's supposed to be an ounce. We should have probably had 2 lemons. I don't know, maybe pour it in that little shot or shooter thing and see what we get.
Do we have to make enough?
Why don't you just do half and half in each glass, and that can be easier. That looks about half and half, doesn't it?
No? I think there might be more in this.
Try it.
Maybe a little bit there.
No, I think they were about half and half. Half an ounce of simple syrup in each one. And usually we've been making our own simple syrup, which is easy to do. We ran short of time today, or I would have done it. It just tastes a little better. It's not so corn syrupy tasting, and makes a nice cocktail. And then we top it off with, oh, I should have opened this already. Thought it was gonna do more than that.
How much?
Fill your glass.
Oh, it's a topper.
Top it off. Top them off. Like not all the way to the top, but you know.
Like
There, yeah. Okay. Forget about your measures. And then you stir them. Well, just chill there. I think you got it stirred. Just a little. Just a gentle stir.
Don't bruise it.
Don't. I was thinking, don't break the glass. So I like this because I didn't realize when you slice a little lemon like that, it's called a lemon wheel.
Aw.
So it's a little lemon wheel then with a maraschino cherry in it, and we used the yummy cherries, not the fake dyed red cherries. We used I call them real cherries. The dark cherries.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Cheers.
Oh, it smells good. Oh, that's really
That's
good.
dangerous.
Hmm.
Like a hot summer's day, you could just down that.
Yeah. Or a cold winter's day, apparently.
Cold February day.
So I'd like to know, Ms. Lilienthal,
Yes, ma'am.
how does Tom Collins fit into Freeborn County?
Okay, so that was the old Tom that I had mentioned.
Oh, there you go. Okay,
Yes.
that's your Tom.
Right. And if you're interested towards the end, I'll give you a Collins. But the only part I knew was that there was a hoax, but I didn't know what the hoax was. But I knew it had to do with going into saloons and stuff. And so I went down a rabbit hole of looking into saloons in Freeborn County. And the first saloon in the county was opened in 1857.
Where?
On 137 South Broadway, Albert Lee.
Oh, in Albert Lee.
It was by a William L. Gray, but it was only open until 1861. That's when the Civil War broke out.
Oh, sure.
And Mr. Gray was like, I'm out of here. He moved to Canada. Just like,
True
I'm
patriot
out.
there.
I'm out. And so it closed, 1861. But 1857 was first one here. And the towns in Freeborn County didn't really have a local government until 1858, a year later.
Okay.
And so when that was all organized, bumps and stuff came in with how to govern and the rules and everything with, once you add structure to something that hasn't had structure, you're going to get people who are like pro and con on different things and a whole bunch of
That's true
kind of
today.
conflicting.
Yes, new
definitely.
laws come into play,
Right?
and there's both sides.
Yep. 1870 is when a special act was passed in the legislature that gave supervisors of the village, they called the village of Albert Lee at that time, they gave them certain powers to conduct affairs within the county and such even. And so again, the pros and cons came up, and there were two big issues that were at the forefront of this. And the first one was taxation, which makes sense. It's like, okay, what are we taxing? How much are we taxing? Why are we taxing? Where are the taxes going to? That was the big thing. The second biggest issue was saloon question. The saloon question.
Funny.
And it was
Even in the 1800s.
in 1870, it was a vital influence. The community was divided between the saloon and the anti-saloon elements. And so early 1874, and that's the year that you said was the whole that it really became big after the hoax, right?
Yes.
In that year, in February, a young man was frozen to death near Albert Lee, and he was intoxicated.
Oh dear.
And a coroner's jury declared that a saloon keeper who sold him the liquor was the responsible party.
Wow.
And that was that same month, the Albert Lee Temperance Alliance was formed, and 58 people joined, immediately.
How many people lived in the village of Albert Lee at that time?
Oh,
I do know.
Golly, I don't know. Not off the top of my head. No.
My goodness.
Yeah. But even 20-some years after that, that was still being an issue in Albert Lee. In 1896, the city was still voting no license for the year, so no license to saloons and such. But in spite of that fact, that in 1896 they said they weren't licensing that year, 5 saloon keepers still applied to the city council for licenses. They didn't take any action with it, but I think it's interesting that they were like, yep, we're still no license, and 5 shopkeepers were still, saloon keepers were still like,
that's how you make sure though that your leadership knows
that you want
that
it.
you want it. I mean,
Sure.
that's one way to
Think
say,
that.
yeah, we would like a pub in our town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's as far as my source got me with the whole saloons.
There are some fun saloon stories,
Mhm.
like we've talked about some of them. The big brouhaha that happened, and I don't remember, something like 40 people or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You liked brouhaha?
I did. That was an Elf the musical, so you unlocked
Brouhaha?
a memory at the back,
Oh.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So
that's
give me
all
the
it was.
Collins piece.
Okay, so Colin, it's actually a kind of a recent history. In 2021.
Oh, wow.
2 years ago. And it was, we have a volunteer that goes out and takes recent photos of the
Mhm.
community within just the time frame that we are now, recording history now as it's happening.
Which is extremely
And
important.
so useful and
Yes.
helpful. And so in September 12th, 2021, we have an image of the Perkins United States flag at half-mast for Colin Powell,
Oh,
who had passed from complications of COVID-19. And he was 84, and I have colon. Is it colon? I'm sorry. I didn't know that. That's real bad. Sorry.
close though.
Well, there's a Henry Collins
There you
that
go.
came in 1859 and was one of the first people to settle in
Sorry.
Charleston. Which we don't talk about Charleston a lot in
No, it's
Freeborn County.
No,
It's a little town. And he was a farmer. He cultivated and he improved farm for about 11 years in Charleston before he moved to Alden to become the first lawyer in Alden in Freeborn County. Yeah, he opened a practice in 1860.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder how many crimes there are where people, like barkeepers, were sentenced for, like over serving and the guy froze to death.
Yeah.
And, it would be fun to delve into that a little bit during our Uncorking History and do like little mini pieces of the
how the law was carried out.
and the stories around how the bartenders and pub owners,
Yeah.
because there were quite a few at one point. We've got some great photos.
Yeah, we do. Well, and I think it's funny that you say that too, because Collins ended up seldom, if ever, appearing in district court cases.
Oh.
Yeah, he was more of a counselor and an advisor.
Oh, interesting.
That's what he kind of went towards.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, cheers. Cheers to Tom and Collins
Yeah.
in Freeborn.
Yeah.
And to Colin Paul.